Hello, welcome to the, first episode of a new podcast that I'm going to be running while I'm doing work. It's going to be called All Fans News. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, and I've been told by a few people that I have the voice to do it, so I thought, you know what, I would go ahead and actually do it. So, basically in this first episode, I just want to go over what will be talking about in a few episodes. So this isn't really an episode, this is more an introduction. But I will consider it like one, so we'll just see what happens at the end. So the sort of things we're going to be talking about in this podcast will be things that I find interesting, and I know many people on the internet finds this stuff interesting also. So it will include Formula 1, video games, movies, and some even engineering news on these episodes. So first off, I did want to point out that eventually we will be getting guests onto these podcast episodes. And like I said, if I seem just distracting some of these, like while I'm talking or something, that's because I'm doing work at the same time. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to show this or not, so I'm not going to, just in case, but it is cool stuff that I'm doing. So if you want to have a look at the stuff I'm doing now, it's look at Fluid Sim. That's a hydraulic pneumatic software that you can use to design drawings, both electrical and physical. Both electrical and actually like the pneumatic and hydraulic side of it. If I get the confirmation, I might even start posting videos on YouTube, which is where this is going to go. As you probably can tell, posting videos of how to use this, same with SolidWorks or AutoCAD, because I find this stuff fun, pretty easy to do. So yeah, I'll do that, and obviously I'd have to get confirmation first, so that might be a second episode thing. But yeah, so to start with today's episode, I thought we could talk about the race that happened recently. I know this is kind of old news. A race weekend that's just gone. I know everyone's starting to cool down from it and now just going into the summer break, but I thought, you know what, I'll talk about it and get my opinion on everything that happened. So yeah, let's start with qualifying. I mean, qualifying was quite normal. I mean, Mercedes had a bit more pace than I think a lot of people were expecting, me included. I know this is normally a Hamilton track, considering he's qualifying wise, it's not really. I don't think. So I think Vettel's got more qualifying results here than he does. But anyway, cutting long story short, I wasn't expecting him to get pole this weekend, even as a Lewis Hamilton fan. I wanted him to, but I wasn't expecting that. I was happy it happened. I don't think he did anything wrong, personally. I don't think he did. I don't think he did anything wrong, because Max and Perez had all the chance to overtake him they wanted to. You could have argued that they could have released him earlier, but the Mercedes were watching when they were going. It's sport. It's a bit of sportsmanship and a bit of gamesmanship, but it's nothing illegal. That's obviously as Mercedes fans, but as an unbiased opinion, I really think it wasn't anything dirty to try and slow, because like I said, Red Bull, it's gamemanship, isn't it? Because Red Bull probably would do the exact same thing, and if you say they wouldn't, you're lying to yourself, because you know they would. So qualifying, let me just quickly get the results up, because I can't 100% remember what the results were. Not Euro. No, not F1. F2. F1. Okay. Let's have a look. So, full results. So we have, like I said, Lewis. That was the surprise result. Bottas I'm going to go on to Bottas a little bit later, but I think Bottas struggled more in Q2 than Q3. I mean, still, he was 3/10 off of Lewis, and that's quite a big gap, considering that's what everyone else would, for other drivers, consider a big gap. And I mean, the half. Then we go down to Max and almost 4-5 tenths off of Lewis, and it's almost half a second. That is insane. Then Perez, I just don't think it was his weekend at all. He wasn't. I don't remember him looking strong in practice. No, I looking through practice, and best he got was 5th, I think, in P2. Yeah. So oh no, 4th. No, that's Carlos. Yeah, that was the best he got. So he wasn't looking strong into the weekend as it was. Yeah, going on to Pierre Gasly. That, as always, amazing qualifying. He does. Him and Albon, I would love to see in that AlphaTauri, those two fighting out, because they never actually were in the same car. I don't think, because Gasly was with Kvyat, then he moved to Red Bull, bringing Albon up, and then they swapped halfway through 2019. So they've never actually been together. They've been in the same car, but they've never been together in the same car. And I think, as a lot of people say, those two have had very equal highs and very equal lows, but I think one had better highs and one had bigger lows, and it was a real thing with them. But I'd love to see them in the same car, because I think they could really surprise a lot of people in that department of Red Bull, and I just really want to see Albon back. Lando, P6, yeah, that's kind of where that McLaren should be, in the top 6. I think it is the 3rd best car on the grid by a long shot. Well, not by a long shot, because now they're on equa points to Ferrari, aren't they? I think, but that was only because of Lando's point. We'll go on to that on the race result. Charles Leclerc, another good qualifying from him. I mean, Ferrari were going to be looking stronger, but I just think I don't think he could quite get it that final lap, because I know there was a lot of people weren't improving. Ocon and Alonso both had really good results this weekend, all out, especially Ocon. But a 10th between those two, which is really, really, really good. I didn't realise this, but only, oh God, was that 7 thousandths? 10, 100,000. Yeah, 7 thousandths between Lando and Leclerc. That just shows how tight that 3rd place battle really is. Yeah, Alonso. Vettel, that was a really good result, getting 10th. Ricciardo had another difficult weekend. Stroll didn't have as good as a weekend as he did in Silverstone. He's shown that he can be a good driver on his day. Like when he was able to get that podium in Azerbaijan in 2018, I think it was. But I think he's just struggling a bit. Kimi and Gio, that's another good Q2 appearance, so that's really good of them. Carlos Sainz, that spin came off the track, DNF'd in Q2, so didn't really show off the true pace of that Ferrari. So let's continue. Yuki didn't have such a great qualifying result. Well, I think the most disappointing qualifying result is George. I mean, the fact that him and Latifi are only about a 10th away from each other, it just shown. I mean, they were so close all weekend, and I just think George just didn't have it this weekend, because he can, like you said, he can usually just take it out of nowhere. And people saying he's a fraud for this, he still beat Latifi in qualifying. It was one qualifying weekend he's not into Q2, where he's arguably got the worst car on the grid. at least one of the worst cars on the grid. So you can't really call him a fraud for that. Like I said, Latifi did a really good job keeping with George this weekend. And then Mazepin, not last, because again, Mick had crashed out in FP3, so they couldn't build the car in time. So Nikita Mazepin, nearly a second off Latifi. It is what it is, isn't it? It's like, I don't know what we really can say about him, because they've just been... The team need the money, and his dad can bring that money. But I think he has shown he can keep with Schumacher in some tracks, some others. It's quite like George and Latifi, but in a much more dramatic scale. A much more dramatic scale. Yeah, so I think that's qualifying. Now let's talk about the race. Well, there's a bloody thingy race. First off, double points for Williams. I want to talk about Williams first because of George and Latifi's relationship this weekend. Yeah, Latifi got more points from Russell, but if we're looking at the season as a whole so far, George, you can't just put all of a sudden after 24 hours going from Latifi's should be replaced by, I think it was Aitken, what a lot of people saying and stuff like that, to, now he's better than George, he's one of the best drivers on the grid, underrated, blah, blah. That is just rubbish, because, I mean, this is, as a lot of the drivers say, it's one of the toughest tracks to pass on. I mean, besides if you're a 7-time world champion, apparently. This is one of the toughest tracks to pass on, and Latifi and actually, if you watch the race, he had a crap start, and this was probably one of Russell's best starts, because if you watch it, he was just off. The only fact is, if he was just a little bit slower, he would have gotten that gap Latifi was in. I mean, George holding, Max had half a car, but George still holding him and Ricciardo back for pretty much half the race is crazy. We're talking about Alonso and Hamilton, but you have to remember, even though, they say he lost about half a second, that half a second, like, there's a difference of at least a second to 2 seconds in, I would say, race pace between that Williams and Red Bull. So it's like, still being able to hold him back is an amazing feat. Latifi had really an amazing job keeping in P3, but I think the undercut was powerful, but it wasn't as powerful as the other tracks, because clean air on that track is deadly, I think, even with dead tyres, and I think that's why he just dropped all the way back. I mean, George was able, the last few laps, George almost caught him. Another lap, or I would say another 2-3 laps, George would caught him. But apparently, I don't know how true this is, but Nicholas apparently had engine troubles, what I've heard, but still, going from 16 seconds down to almost 2 is pretty impressive. And the last few races, Latifi has had decent race pace. He always has had decent race pace. One of the best race paces on the grid. But I just think Russell is the better driver. Like I said, he's had so many more chances at points where either the cars picked him up, other drivers have picked him up, or he's screwed himself over. Then let's start going down the grid. Ocon, amazing, right? You cannot take anything away from him. I hope, everyone's going like, oh, now I wish he went to Mercedes instead of Russell. I don't. I want him to stay in the Alpine, be like Alonso. Yeah, kind of be like Alonso, stay with Renault and get that Renault team, Alpine team, to a good place. I want to go over why I'm saying the opposite for Russell in a minute. Lewis, they never should have left him on the grid. He should have always came in. Even Russell knew everyone's going to come in, so that's why he was like, I'm going to come in. But it made it more interesting. And seeing that basically F1 2021 lobby, well, basically just any F1 game lobby at the start, that restart was amazing. Carlos Sainz, good race from him. First podium with Lewis, but it's another podium with where he's been given it after, but it's the first time he's had a podium and Lewis has also had a podium, I think, because usually like he's Lewis's unlucky charm. I mean, we don't really want to talk about Vettel, the whole not having the rules are rules, it's black and white, but I don't know. So I think that's why they had to get George to stop literally as soon as he finished, because otherwise I don't think they had enough fuel either. The same with a lot of drivers, because I think Latifi didn't just quite have enough. I think that's why he had to stop. I think he stopped. I can't remember, because pretty much after the race finished, because my dad's a massive Lewis Hamilton fan and Mercedes fan, which I am as well, we kind of just turned it off. But I've been watching like some of the read-through on like YouTube and stuff like that. Anyway, Alonso showing why he's a 2-time world champion. And just keeping Lewis behind for so long, just you cannot take anything away from him. Pierre Gasly with the fastest lap as well, had a good race, P5. Good load of points for them this weekend. Both him and Tsunoda really outclassed that car this weekend. I mean, Tsunoda swearing again, and him being all aggressive on the radio. Yes, be careful with that. But, I mean, he's much better. He actually is finishing races now. I mean, he's still spinning in FP1, FP2, but at least that's the FP1, FP2 gearbox and stuff. But still, you don't want to be messing those engines and gearboxes up, because you still, I think, get penalties for having to replace those ones if you replace it too many times. I mean, people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how it works. So, yeah, Latifi and George, first Williams double point score in ages. You can't take anything away from Latifi that race. He got quite lucky at the start, finding that gap. George holding up people and even wanting to compromise his race for Nicky. That was really impressive. I really think, even though I am basically a George Russell stan at the moment, I really think that was maybe something to show Toto that he can be. But I don't think George is that type of person. I don't think George would think of it like that. I wouldn't think George would think of it as a sense of, oh, I should say this because it might look good for Toto, and because like everyone's saying like, oh, he shouldn't go to Mercedes because of the harmony thing and teammate thing. I don't think it was anything about that. I just think George wanted to prove that he can be a teammate, but it wasn't for reasons why I think people were saying it for. Anyway, Verstappen, half a car, was able to keep it in the points. I mean, did Ricciardo pit at the end? I think he did, because if he didn't, then Max would have only got 1 point, I think. But saying that, didn't Max take him? I think that's why Ricciardo pitted, wasn't it? I think so, yeah, because then you have Kimi at the bottom of the points, with Daniel, Schumacher, and Gio. Schumacher running the points for a little while, holding everyone up. I think George probably would have got Latifi at the end if he wasn't held up by Schumacher for so long. It was for so long he was just held up for. It was just that. It's the same all across the board. I mean, you would think with 2 DRS zones you'd be able to like really easily overtake, but here, because there's so many corners in like the second and third section where you'll never stop really moving that steering wheel, and dirty air is so important, then I think it really affects the sorry about that, the actual car itself and how good it runs. Obviously the first lap incident, Mazepin was out, Lando, Bottas, basically Bottas bowling. I was, as a Mercedes fan, I was cheering when I saw Max was hit, Perez was hit. Obviously I'm glad they're okay, but like don't take it out of context saying like, oh yeah, I wanted Max to be hurt and stuff. And then it's the same with Silverstone, with a lot of people cheering when he got hit, but then as soon as they saw with the speed he was coming at that wall, they quickly shut up. A lot of people quickly shut up. It was the same with people in my house. Me and my dad were watching it. We saw him tap with Lewis. He started going around. We started screaming, and then all of a sudden, like when we saw what speed he was going at the wall at, we was like, "Oh God." We were worried, and I think a lot of people were taking what people were doing out of proportion. I think. Just got a Discord notification. And Snapchat. Probably heard that. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, it isn't looking good for Red Bull cost cap wise, because that's now 2 incidents, 2 race weekends in a row. It's funny because I was predicting Lando probably wasn't gonna finish in the points this weekend, and I predicted Red Bull were gonna come together, like the Max and Perez come together by accident. I wasn't too far off. Yeah, Lance Stroll. The 5 place red penalties. Do I think that was enough? I mean, if you look how many people actually were DNF because of their accidents, 1, 2, so 6 including those 2, so 4 other drivers, and then ruining basically Max's race and a load of other people's races. Let's say in about 8 to 10 drivers were ruined. Yeah, then you could basically argue 5 place grid penalties for 5 each drivers that they basically ruin their races for. That's I don't know if that's how the stewards look at it, because like they said at Silverstone, they don't look at it for what's happened. They just what was the word in? They don't give penalties for the result. I think that's not the word in, but basically like they didn't give Lewis the penalty because Max hit the wall so hard. They gave him the penalty because he touched Max's tyre, and he could have left a little bit more room. That was why, and I think it was similar with these guys. So yeah, I think that's. I mean, the drivers. Let's look at the. Can we have a look at the championship stand-in? Do they have the championship stand-in here? One standing. So, if we start with the drivers, we have Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, Bottas, Perez in the top 5. I mean, Norris could come out with this if he carries on outscoring Bottas. He probably could get away with coming out of this 3rd in the constructors, but I don't see that because it's now only 5 points. I really don't see a lot of people saying, "Oh, Bottas is still in the race." I don't think he is, because he's now almost 100 points behind Lewis. He's about 87 points behind Lewis, and he's about 79 points away from Max, and that's almost 4 race wins, and those two not getting any points. I don't see Bottas doing something like that. And I don't see Mercedes or Red Bull letting that happen. I don't know. This season's been a bit wild, considering when we come back from summer, I believe we have a triple header, so that could happen then. Perez, he's looking strong. I still stand by the thought of if he didn't. I mean, he's a strong driver and probably one of the best to pick for Max, but if he didn't win the Sakhir Grand Prix last year, because I think I remember them saying that they had already signed his contract before then, but then I remember people saying they didn't. See, I think that if he didn't win that race, they probably wouldn't have hired him. They probably would have kept Alex or swapped him and Gasly. Done that swap again. But with looking at how Alex has started to improve with this DTM driving, I'm kind of glad they did put him there and then hopefully bring him in next season, because really they do need 2 young talents there with this two young talents that. See, this is where the argument comes in. You want people reliable next season because it's a whole new thing, and that's where a lot of people are getting their arguments not to put George in the Mercedes, because how reliable would he be? And he is. It's more the fact that the team. I mean, we saw it in the Sakhir last year. the team messing him about, giving him the wrong tyres, him getting a puncture, which some people have argued that, well, the more theorists in the group have theorized that there wasn't a puncture and they just wanted to test him and see how high he could get if that situation occurred. Which, did they not want him to win that race? Did they not want to show Lewis up? Is big questions like a lot of people are asking. Anyway, skipping that, Sainz and Charles, very similar in position, only 3 points between those two, which makes sense, considering Carlos has had more podiums. Gasly and Ricciardo want equal points. I didn't know that. Really, we want in Ricciardo to get the podium again, have make up for missing a shoey, because he should have 2. Then we go down Ocon, Alonso, Vettel, Tsunoda, Stroll, Latifi, Russell. Yeah, and then the only guys who haven't had points so far is Mick and Mazepin. And then constructors, yeah, Mercedes are now back up top with 12 points, with only 4 wins to Red Bull 6. Then Ferrari, McLaren on equal points with equal podiums. Alpine, Alfa, Aston, Williams, Alfa Romeo, and Haas. I'm just saying, we've got on a free triple header coming up, and this is going to be interesting, is all I'm saying. Can't walk onto... Forget you have to at least put a letter down, don't you, just to make sure it doesn't disappear. There we go. Okay, so I think that's F1 talked about enough. No, because I wanted to talk about my lineup. I mean, I did a little bit. Let's just go at Mercedes. Probably Lewis and Russell. If it's Lewis and Bottas, I see Russell going somewhere else. Maybe Red Bull. Maybe being swapped out for Tsunoda in AlphaTauri. But I do think it's going to be Russell, Lewis, Red Bull, Max and Perez. Yeah, I would say Max Perez for the first year. Ferrari, there's no point them changing either of them drivers. So Carlos and Leclerc stay the same. McLaren, I think they've guaranteed staying the same, because I think both drivers have signed new contracts. Same with Alpine. I think. Have they? I think they've signed contracts. What the hell is this song playing? Sorry, I've just had like a playlist in the background and it's just now become really weird. There you go. Alpine, Alonso. I don't see them getting rid of Alonso with his talents being shown this year. Yeah, AlphaTauri. I think what would be solid for them is bringing Albon back and doing an Albon Gasly team, and Yuki, basically swapping Albon and Yuki. I think Yuki needs a year somewhere else, because I think he needs to be taught a lesson to basically just calm down, and humility. Well, not humility, but he just needs to calm down, I think, a little bit, because I think he's a bit like Max in some senses, where he's a bit overly aggressive, but he's worse than Max. Like, he's not in driving way, like racing. What I've seen, I don't think he's too bad, but like we hardly see those kind of drivers racing. But I think he's sometimes a bit too harsh on the pedal, and I think if he went into a different category and learnt how to control his driving a little bit better, I think he would be a really good driver. I think he has a really lot of potential that showed at the start of the season. So yeah, I see it being either Albon and Gasly, or them dropping Gasly and him potentially going to Alpine as a reserve driver. or potentially to Williams. I don't see him wanting to go to Williams, but it can happen. Aston Martin. This is one of my biggest what will happen questions, because I don't think if Russell don't go into Mercedes, this is probably where he'll go. I mean, in theory, they would want to keep Vettel as an older driver. Similar situation to Alpine. They would want to keep a knowledge and experienced driver, 4-time world champion, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Yeah, 4-time world champion. Who wouldn't need that in new regulations? You would want that, wouldn't you? But it's difficult because Mercedes have they have a big purchase in Aston Martin, I think. So Toto probably could get his driver in there. I mean, Stroll is one of his drivers. One of his many drivers. Yeah, so I think it could be a surprise Russell Stroll team next year, which would be very interesting, which I think a lot of people would be pretty peeved. I'm trying not to swear, but pretty annoyed. Because the fact of I think everyone just wants Russell to do well, and I don't know if Aston Martin are going to give him that next year. I mean, there's some people arguing Aston Martin's going to be one off, if not the best team on the grid. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens next year. Williams, if carrying on where I am at the moment, but Aston Martin, probably Vettel and Stroll. Williams, Latifi's bringing them a lot of money at the moment, and he's starting to get a lot better on race and qualifying pace. We don't know if that's going to continue or if that was just a one-off at Hungary. Because compared to Russell qualifying wise, he's been even worse than Kubica, I think. So I think it will be him, because pure to the pace and the money he brings in, and the sponsors and stuff. And I think maybe I'm trying to think. Is it Roy Nissany? I think it's either him or Jack Aitken would probably get it. I think Jack Aitken's probably the biggest one, I think, most likely, but I'm not sure. I haven't really been following F2 that much, but I think what videos I have watched, a lot of people saying Jack Aitken most likely, or I don't know, maybe Jamie Chadwick. We don't know. That would be a surprise move by Williams if they brought her in. Be good for the sport. That'll be the first female driver since the 50s, I think. Last F1 female driver. Oh no, I was wrong. The last one was Giovanna Amati. Sorry if I've thingied that name, but in 1992 in Brabham. So if actually, Susie Wolff was a test driver. I didn't know that. Yeah, so she signed for Williams as a test driver. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so she became first Formula 1 race weekend in 2020, in 22 years. That's pretty cool. So then you have Desire Wilson, 1980. See, Williams, Layla Lambury and Williams in 1974 to 1976. You have one from 1976 to 1978. Hesketh and Surtees. I haven't heard those. I don't think I've heard those teams before. And then you've got some other ones in Maserati and Porsche. Half a point. Remember when you could have half a point? Yeah, so it would be interesting. See, these two, Alfa Romeo, I personally don't see them getting rid of Raikkonen. Why would you? You're going into brand new regulations. Why would you risk bringing in an F2 driver with brand new regulations? That's why I don't think a lot of teams are going to bring in new drivers. Actually, I want to change my Williams answer. I think it might be Hulkenberg. No, Bottas. Bottas. I think it's going to be a straight swap. Purely the fact of the new year regulations. I then see them getting rid of Bottas for Aitken or someone along that line. Because you want someone experienced in that first year to get the car to a point of drivability. You want that team to have that experience of someone who knows what it feels like to go through that change. That's what I don't think Alfa Romeo would want to get rid of Raikkonen. I mean, Ferrari could say, no, we want him gone. We want to bring one of the new guys up our ranks. Like Lawson. Is it Lawson? I think Lawson's the next Ferrari Academy driver, isn't he? Or Ilott. Is it Ilott? Yeah, it might be Ilott. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't think Alfa Romeo are going to change. I don't think Gio's going to go, because I think Gio is still probably want to be the big futures of Ferrari. Him. I mean, why wouldn't you want an Italian at Ferrari? That's why I don't get why they haven't brought him to Ferrari sooner. Because, I mean, imagine if he won in Monza instead of Leclerc. That would have just been insane. Insane. Going to Haas. Don't see them changing. Mick. He's had an okay season. I mean, he had a good race last weekend. Well, this weekend just gone. He's out-qualified Nikita when he's actually been on the track. But like his dad said, you have to finish first, don't you? Is that the quote? You first have to finish or something. And just sometimes he doesn't. And I think there's more hype about him, pure the fact his name and talent. I mean, you have to have a lot of talent to win F2. Don't get me wrong. What I saw, that was a lot due to a lot of, I think it's Callum Ilott's mistakes. But he did have some of his, like when that fire extinguisher went out in his cockpit. I bet that must have been a fun experience. But yeah, long story short, why would you get rid of a Schumacher name? How many sponsors that could bring in? And Nikita has his dad who has a big chunk of Haas. So yeah. Well, let's go on to what potentially can be the 11th team, the Rich Energy Group. Yeah. I mean, they released a picture a few months back with Mick's number on their car. So that could potentially be a surprise move, him go to Rich Energy. Because Haas might still own a small amount of Rich Energy, so they might be able to put their driver there. But I see it probably be like two younger drivers, like any Formula 2 drivers that haven't had the chance, say like Zhao. But I don't see Renault allowing them to buy to loan one of their drivers. So it could be Kvyat. And who else needs a seat? Maybe Bottas. Maybe Hulkenberg. Yeah, maybe it might be Kvyat Hulkenberg, but I don't see Hulkenberg really wanting to go to a team like that. I see him more wanting to go to Williams. Where didn't he start his career in Williams? He's driven for Williams. Yeah, so he started with Williams in 2010, and then it was in Force India with 2011 to 2012, when they were actually like, the green. I miss that green and white and orange. I think it just stood out on the car. Personally, I think that was probably one of the best looking cars on the grid. Just the fact that how much it stood out. A lot of people very disagree with me, but I think that would look nice on today's car. Maybe someone should definitely reproduce that on today's car if they haven't. Or Old Force India colours on today's car. No one's done that, I don't think. It doesn't look like it. Do you know what? I just saw the picture of the Alpine test colours. So, it's like the black. And then like the Alpine colours. That looks so nice. It's the same with the Alfa Romeo. Their one they did, I think it was for last season's testings, like the black. Oh, that looked so nice. Some of these teams test ones are like better than thingies. So yeah. Anyway, I would love to see Hulkenberg start and end his Formula One career at Williams. That would just be brilliant. We get Nico Hülkenberg back, as Ricardo would say, because he is the reserve driver for Aston Martin this season, which would be to see him come back one of these races. See, I see him maybe going to, because he's now a bigger part of a test driver of the Mercedes group, because I think that's who he's going to be test driving for next season. I see him potentially going to Williams next season. Now that I think of it like that, that's probably a bigger chance now. But because he's a test driver, maybe not. I mean, yeah, it all depends what him, Toto, Aston Martin's, is it Opnar Safnauer? Snaf. Wait, I think I just got his picture. No. Opnar. Racing Point team. Yeah, Otmar Safnauer is the main engineer. It's really what he says and stuff like that. Who's this? Andrew Seidel. McLaren. Yeah, he's McLaren, isn't he? Yeah, because him and Zach Brown, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I think is that all I want to talk about Formula One wise? Let me have a look. Yeah, so I've covered who I think. So a little bit of a different topic. This is what this podcast is going to be. It's going to be jumping from topic to topic. That's why it's called All Fan News. So you can get your different news about your different topics. I'm going to make a better script for next time's episode, like actually news, statistics, and stats and stuff like that. What I want to talk about next is the new Black Widow film. I know it's not really new, but it's like, what can I do? What do I think of it? Well, what do I think about it? I think it was a good film. In short, I think it's a good film. It explains a lot of stuff. I kind of wish. I mean, my favorite definitely had to be that Russian captain. Oh, what was his name? The dad. So like the Russian Captain America was brilliant. But yeah, I think it was good because it explained like a bit the backstory, but I mean there was the alternate ending where, well, not apparently, but there was news where there's an alternate ending. You know, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched it. Where what's their name whistles at the end, and no one answers. That someone actually answers it. I mean, but actually talking about that ending, that could perfectly lead to the new Hawkeye TV show that's based more about his daughter. So maybe those two fight, and that woman who's in, who was talking to the fake Captain America, was there again. I haven't actually watched Falcon and Winter Soldier. I've just seen clips of her. Yeah, but in short, I think it's better than a lot of other Marvel films, but not the best, personally. I mean, there's action. You have Black Widow, so that should be more than enough to make it an excellent film, which it does. So yeah, I think that I really don't have a lot to talk about there. Taskmaster, that's what I wanted to talk about. Is Taskmaster a woman? Is it? Because I always thought it was a male, and I agree. Someone was talking about how it's more like Iron Man where it's just programmed into her. And let's say, yeah, it's a woman. Let's just say that for now. Well, I haven't searched it up yet, but it's. I always thought it was more. He had, yeah, Tony Masters. I mean, according to this, oh, this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe wiki. Yeah, in the comics, Anthony Tony Masters, better known as Taskmaster, was a mercenary hired as a instructor by various criminal organizations. Yeah, because I remember, because he's in Spider-Man, isn't he? And so, you know, you would, and like, because I thought he had, what's the word? Like what Sheldon has, photographic memory. I thought that was why he remembered everything, and I think that is one of a lot of people's peeves about it, is the fact that it's more Iron Man, like, programmed into her than it is like actually, you know, like his just pure powers and memories. Personality. Yeah, I mean, okay. So I think that's everything I want to talk about there. I think I just wanted to end it off with talking about the podcast again. I will be bringing people on eventually, talking over like Discord or something. I need to learn how to be able to cut through cameras first, so that you can see me when I'm talking, him or her when she's talking. And I'll be asking them questions on different stuff. So I'll try and get like 3 or 4 different people on, like talking about different topics, such as Formula 1, video games, and more. Which video games, I'm sorry, I've kind of just not really talked about much, because I haven't really been in the circle for a long time. It's all I really hear about currently is just Fortnite, and how a lot of people hate Warzone, and then a lot of people like it, and a lot of people trying to stop people playing it, and a lot of people just not. I personally think it's probably going to be a lot of people hate me. It's ruined. It's not its fault. It's Fortnite's fault. But I think it has ruined Call of Duty, because it's changed the dates, like how Call of Duty used to work with its release dates. Because by now, like a lot of Call of Duty YouTubers have said, we usually would get a trailer by now, and we're still getting DLCs and stuff. I mean, we used to, but we're not at the end of Cold War. I haven't even played it. I just don't think it looks good at all. I mean, the campaign, how they've changed that, and how you can kill Mason and Woods, that just, as soon as I heard that, no, I don't want that. I don't want that crap. I just didn't like it whatsoever, because what I've heard, like, if that is true, because I've just seen the clip, and like, I don't know how true it is, but if that's true, that's completely then retconned BO2, which arguably, not even arguably, is the best. Arguably is the best Black Ops. If we're looking over everything, campaign, zombies, and multiplayer. Yeah, so I mean, but you still have to argue, like, the graphics are good and the gameplay's good. I mean, I haven't played it, but it looks good. The zombies, don't even want to talk about that. I'm a big zombies fan, have been for years, and I just am a premise and basically a thingy storyline fan, not really any other one. I mean, actually, saying that, I like the Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare storylines. They were good. I had more than what we got in BO4 and what we got in this. I mean, what we got in BO4 was just horrible. Some maps instead of originality, they just tried to reuse stuff, and it's just not what we really wanted. They put what we wanted, but wrong. It's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's really all I really want to talk about. Like I said, Warzone. I played it like a few times, and I just don't get the hype about it. To be honest, I really don't. It's okay in my opinion. Anyway, I have to get going. I've enjoyed this, and yeah. So yeah. So this has been my first podcast. It's all fan news heading out, and again, thank you for listening. It's just something I've always been wanting to do. So yeah, cheers, thank you, and bye.